So we're going to record the meeting because there was 3 or 4 people who messaged me that said, I wish I could come, but I'm busy. So we'll be recording it for them. So I should start by introducing myself. So my name is Neil-Barron. I currently serve as the Ministerial Intern and Faithify Project Manager, currently with the New England region. And I am here in Boston. And although it says UUA meeting, joined by someone else, so we'll get people to introduce themselves in a second. But yeah, so I work out of our Boston office, and I am one of the 3 people who are Faithify on the back end. So if you're emailing, if you have a question, you're probably sending an email to me. And so I've been getting to know people across the country through this, which has been really great. And we're lucky enough to be joined by Adam Dyer, who recently, how much did you raise on Faithify, Adam?
It's funny, I forget. 4,500?
Something like that, right. Well, yeah, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself? Adam is going to be our kind of Faithify project owner. He's going to give a testimonial about what it's like. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Adam Dyer. Let's see. I'm a student at the Pacific School of Religion. I will hopefully finish with an MDiv degree. That's the goal in any case. And let's see, this past summer, I was looking at different prospects of ways to engage some of the work that I had already been involved with while I was in my internship at the First UU San Diego, and looked at Faithify as a way to actually fund it. And what's interesting about that is it was that leg up that I needed in order to be able to look at this in a longer and a broader trajectory, which I can talk about more as we go on. But yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks. Adam's going to give a kind of longer testimonial in a bit. But I'll give you a bit of lay of the land for what this webinar is going to look like. I'll invite y'all to introduce yourselves, give us a little bit of background of where you're coming from. And then I'm going to go through the real basics of Faithify. I'm going to tell you where it came from, what it's used for. Then we're going to go on the site and kind of walk through its different features so you get a feel of it. Feel free to ask questions during my talking, and you can do that 2 ways. You can either just say, Sean, stop talking, I have a question, or you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to be responsive to those questions in the chat. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, there should be a little bubble icon with some dots in it, and that's the chat icon. And if you just type in your question there, you'll be good to go. Other good buttons to know in that bottom are the mute button, which looks like a microphone. So if you have a cat that's running around, not pointing at any fingers, Paul, and it's making a lot of noise, just hit the mute button and we won't hear it. Same thing with budgies or dishwashers. And then if you want to stop your video for any reason, you can also hit the stop video. So I'd love to hear from you. Where are you hailing from? Why don't we start with Paul, and then we'll go to Laura, and then we'll end with, I don't know the name, but I assume someone from UU Justice, Arizona.
Okay, just a quick
Introduction.
Who am I and where am I from? And
sounds great.
Okay. I'm Paul Beadle, the minister now of First Unitarian Universalist Church in New Orleans. I'm started 2 years ago on contract, and I was called in July, so we're about to install me this coming Sunday evening. And we're looking at just about every aspect of raising funds right now at the church. So this is just part of a larger project for me, learning everything I can.
Awesome. Laura?
I'm Laura Smitik. I work at White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church in Monamedi, Minnesota. And I'm also going to be ordained on Saturday. And I'll join the ministerial team there. There's already 2 ministers. I'm part-time. And yeah, that's the main. I'm looking at another part-time job, and that's why I'm on the call, but I haven't been hired yet, so I'm not talking about it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Our friends in Arizona.
Yeah, my name's Lisa McDaniel Hutchings. I'm a minister and also the executive director for UU Jazz, Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona. And we received a grant from the UU funding program, and they encouraged us to raise part of our money on Faithify. Part 10,000 was a straight out grant, and then $5,000 match. So we're looking to raise part of the match with you all.
Great. And I see that Rod has joined the call. Rod, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a candidate in Toronto. I'm helping out at the Neighborhood Unitarian Congregation in the east end of Toronto. Seeing the MFC in a few weeks, October.
Good luck, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. And no other plans right away, but thinking ahead of what other opportunities there might be outside church walls, and I'm wondering how something like this might be enriching to those favorite projects.
Awesome. Full disclosure, Rod is one of my good friends, so he'll be staying in the room that I am in right now when it comes down to Boston. All right, so why don't we jump right into the basics of Faithify. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. Are you seeing a PowerPoint presentation right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. That means that something is going right. Except that it took over my entire screen. All right, there we are. Try that one more time. All right, so Faithify is a crowdfunding site. Crowdfunding has really been around for the last 4 or 5 years. And basically, it's a way to harness the internet and social networks, those connections that we have virtually, to raise money. And the basics of crowdfunding, no matter if it's on Faithify or if it's on another platform such as Kickstarter or Indiegogo or GoFundMe, is that someone or some group of people has an idea, and they take that idea through some sort of virtual platform to a group of people, and they ask that group of people to fund them with their money. And so that's basically the process of an idea going to a crowd of people, getting some money, and then being able to go out and do that work. So I'll give you some stats later on about what crowdfunding, what we've been able to do in just over a year at Faithify. But one of the things that I'm most proud of beyond the stats is that we've been able to take the process of getting initiatives funded away from simply being a grant-based process. Faithify really is democratizing the distributing of funds within Unitarian Universalism. So instead of one small group of persons being able to decide how hundreds of thousands of dollars are being distributed, we're letting Unitarian Universalists across the continent vote with their dollar about what they want to see, blossom in our Unitarian Universalist communities. And so that sort of democratization of grant process is something that we're really excited about in Faithify, because we think the crowd is actually a really intelligent being. There's a story by a scholar, Galtung. He was really interested about the power of crowds. And so he got everyone at a country fair to guess the weight of a cow. And then he took all the guesses and he averaged them, and they were within 2 pounds of the actual cow's weight. And this is an experiment that's been replicated many times. And so we're really excited that Faithify allows us to leverage the guesses of Unitarian Universalists, bringing their distinct perspectives to funding things in our movement. But really, it's so much more than funding. One of the things we get asked all the time is, why don't we just post crowdfunding projects on other platforms? Why can't Unitarian Universalists go to Indiegogo or GoFundMe or another crowdfunding platform to get their funding, get their project funded? And for us, having Unitarian Universalists have their separate portal to this world allows inspiration to occur at a greater level. One of the things I love going on Faithify, and one of the things I'm have a privilege of doing because I work with Faithify is I get to see the innovative projects that are going on across the continent, and I get to be inspired by them. And it also allows Unitarian Universalists to have a place to go to break down the boundaries that our congregations often lead us into. We get so caught up in our own work that we don't always look to our neighbor and see what they need. One of my favorite stories is about a crowdfunding Faithify project in Virginia in which a congregation lost their minister. She passed away, and a neighboring congregation put up a Faithify campaign and raised over $10,000 for them. And I think that's not only an example of our polity of showing up for one another in need, but it really shows us how these sorts of platforms can break down the walls and the boundaries between us. And then we get to see the beautiful values of Unitarian Universalism being spread in so many different ways. But let's get some results. I actually had to update this twice today because of all the donations that we saw. So Faithify launched in June of 2014, so we've been just over a year. In that time, we've had $337,000 pledged on our site to 94 different projects. And our projects have a 75% success rate with an average pledge of about $102. So walking that back, other crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter, like Indiegogo, have a success rate of about 43%. So we are almost doubling the success rate of other crowdfunding platforms. And I think that just testifies to that seventh principle, that we're actually showing up for one another and supporting each other in times of need. I think it's just kind of incredible that we've been able to raise so much money. We're hoping to get to at least $500,000 by General Assembly. I think we're going to get over that, but I'm being told that we should be a little bit conservative and have our minds blown by the end of the year. So now I'm going to take you on a little tour of the site. Are there any questions before I do that? We're good? Awesome. All right, so I'm going to take you on a little tour of the site. So if you go into your web browser and you bring yourself to www.faithify.org, you're going to find yourself on the Faithify website. And the Faithify website is a pretty simple website. When you get to the home page and you scroll down, you're going to see all of the different projects that are being posted. And each of the projects have a few different things. They have a featured image. This is an image that if you were a project holder, you would upload so that people could know distinctively who you are. It also has a title, the project. So if you look over here, the first project is Growing UU Ministers at Tree of Life. So that's the title. And then they have a description, a short description of the project. These really need to be short. We have to cut them down all the time. But this is kind of a teaser of why someone looking at this should fund their project. And then you have a little ticker which tells you how much has been donated, what their goal is, and how much time they have to fund it. So that's one of the things about Faithify. Let's click into one of these projects. Let's go to this one. So this is a project by our church in not New Haven, it's in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. So this is a project that was launched by the Unitarian Society of Hartford. And they're fundraising about $1,400 to buy Black Lives Matter signs to encourage congregations in their suburban community. So they had this idea, they posted it on Facebook, they picked their images, they wrote their text, which they'll get into, and they've raised about $160 in about 5 days from 6 different people. One of the things about Faithify is that you have to raise your full goal amount to get the money. So by the end of their 30 days, they're going to need to have at least $1,420 to actually get that amount. So a user who would go on the site would hit fund, and they're basically making a pledge. It's like a pledge drive at church. You're saying, I'm going to pay this amount. And you're going to put in your credit card number, but you're only going to be charged if they make that full amount. So we call this all or nothing funding. But I'll talk about that a little bit later in more detail. So we've got to the site, we see how much they need to raise, we see an image. This can also be a place to put a video. So some of our projects produce videos. And that can be as simple as you sitting in front of your webcam talking about why this is a great idea, or it can be as complicated as hiring someone who's really good at videos to make it. Both of those work. As long as it's a compelling story, this is something that will be funded. So then you scroll down, and this is where the different sections of the project are shown. You have the big description. This allows you to see all of the different parts or flesh out the project. What is it being? Why are they doing it? This is all generated text. So you as a project owner have complete control over what text goes in there. The only two questions that you need to answer for us at Faithify are these ones. I'm gonna hide. Do you see my highlighting? Let's see if I can annotate. Here we go. Here we are. How does your project claim Unitarian Universalism, and how is your project claimed by Unitarian Universalism? So we at Faithify, when we were starting out, we were trying to figure out, so how exactly are we going to screen projects? We don't want to become another granting body. We want the crowd to decide what are good projects they want funded, and projects that they don't want funded. But we need to have some sort of screen, because we don't want just any project that doesn't have to do with Unitarian Universalism or a project that doesn't seem in line with our values to be put on the site. And so we came up with these two screens. So you need to be able to tell us how your project is Unitarian Universalist. So this project is, the minister of this church is a co-founder of the chapter of Standing Up for Racial Justice, and their other local UUs are participating. So that, obviously, these are UUs doing it, so they're claiming it. And the second part of it, how is your project claimed by Unitarian Universalism? They've answered, our church is a congregation, they're part of the UUA, so that satisfies us. We say they're claimed, they're claiming, good on you, you're good to go to get funded. And then you go down and you have an option for other parts. You can talk about project partners. So if you're working with another organization, you're fundraising with them, you could talk about them. So they're talking about Standing Up for Racial Justice. You can add a partner congregation, and you can add links and files that'll give you some more information. And then at the bottom, this is the exciting part, you get to see who are the people that are funding you. So we have donations that range from $10 to $50 from our 6 individuals funding this project. So that's the project page. So when you go in to post a project, those are the different fields. Any questions about that?
I'm assuming you'll get into a little bit of the thought process behind why the 30 days, and I'm also curious about sort of funders.
Sure.
We're going to be hitting that.
Yeah, I'll be talking about that in a bit, but to remind me if I don't.
Okay.
So when you're at the Faithify webpage, one of the things you'll see is up here at Post a Project. So this is your portal for if you're wanting to put a project on our site. You would go up here, hit Post a Project, and we have some resources for you. Our How to Post a Project instructional PDF with tips. Tells you everything I'm telling you in more detail. And if you're a visual learner, that's a great place to go. And then we also have a video which walks you through the process, so you can go and watch that. We also recommend that you download a blank project entry page. This is basically all the information boxes that you need to fill out. They'll be there, so you can fill it out without going onto our website. But if you're ready to post your project, you click here, ready to post a project, and you're brought to the project posting page. So this is where you would input all of your information, your name, your email address, your relationship to the project, the title, the owner, how much you want to raise, and how long you want to raise that. So maybe I'll pause and talk a little bit about the number of days. So you have 4 choices to pick for your project. You can pick 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, and 60 days. And I can tell you that there isn't much difference in project success rate between those who pick 15 days and those who pick 60 days. That's not a determining factor about whether or not congregations or projects are successful. The biggest thing is whether or not you have the stamina to to activate your networks for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So I've seen projects that have raised $5,000 in 15 days. Some projects have taken 60 days to raise $5,000. The number of days really should be how much time do you have to spend, and how long do you think it will take to activate and to get in touch with the funders that you're interested in getting money from. So if you have a lot of funders that are ready to give money already, 15 days, perfect. Especially if this is something that has been in their mind, it's a cause close to their heart, 15 days is great. If you need to do some more education, if you need to reach a few more different types of audiences, 30 or 45 days. And if you think if you want to give yourself even more of a buffer, you can go with the 60 days. From our experience on Faithify, it's all about reaching out to your networks and asking them. I'm sure Adam will talk about this. The amount of time can actually be an illusion. Most projects will see a bunch of donations the first few days they post their project. Then everyone forgets about it. Project owners think, oh, I've told everyone about it. They remember who must be funding me. And then no one funds them for a while. And then they get out, they experience that doldrum, they get out those emails, make those phone calls, and then they see an uptick near the end of the project. The biggest, the studies of crowdfunding say that people want to be part of success. So if you can drive your project to the tipping point, to the 50 or 60%, then more than likely people are going to jump on the bandwagon and push you to your goal. But you do need to push people to get to that tipping point. So this is the application. You would go in, input your information, upload your images, put your video. This is your description box. So you're able to format it in a way that is pleasing to the eye. Talk about how you claim, talk about your partners, and then you would go down here and you would hit submit your project. You can also save your project. This allows you to come back to it as long as you're logged in to your Faithify account. And then you can submit it for review. Then I will take a look at it. If I think that you're claimed and are claiming, I will free you up to be funded on Faithify, and the timer starts. One thing that we've just introduced that we haven't been talking about a lot is Faithify, what I'm calling Faithify University. So as soon as you start a draft on our site, you will be automatically enrolled in Faithify University, which is 5 days of information about how to do crowdfunding effectively, how to write for the web, how to activate your networks, how to be part of the movement. And so that's something that we're really excited to be rolling out.
Cool.
So that's the basics of the actual site. Are there any questions?
Is there a budget included in your, in your thing that you post online, or is it more around the narrative and the energy of the project?
So you're able to upload files and include tables in your description. So you can add a link to a budget that's posted on Dropbox or just onto the site. We generally think that this is about the narrative of
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Be doing. And if people have specific questions about your budget, your email address is right there. They can reach out to you. I have not heard of a project being asked to produce a budget from a funder, but it could have happened.
And what about the range? What do you see in terms of the range of what people are asking, are fundraising for?
Yeah, so the lowest project I've seen is for about $150. Our record-breaking project was the project that was launched at General Assembly, which is supporting the Lummi Nation and their totem pole journey, which raised over $13,000. So that's been the range so far. Kickstarter regularly gets multi-million dollars. I don't know if we'll get there yet. But so far, I would say the average project is about $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
What major issues have you seen, or is there a pattern to the things that are like problems to really watch out for?
Yeah, for sure. I would say so I did some analysis the other day about the difference between a project that is successful and a project that isn't successful. And the average project that is successful has about 300 to 400 shares on social media. So that is someone going to the website or you posting about it and inviting people to the site. The average project that fails has about 50. So that just shows the power of getting people, whether it's you, people you're working with, people in your network talking about it. We also know that, so we get emails halfway through people's campaigns and they say, Sean, we're not going to make our goal. Can we change our goal? Can we change our time frame? Those are the two things that you can't change. You can't change your goal. You can't change your time frame. But then we usually say, have you wrote an email to your friends and family asking them to fund you? And most people say, oh, I never thought about doing that. And we go, okay, that's a great place to start. And then we say, you know that your project is going to be, you're about halfway. Do the people who might fund you know that you're halfway through? Maybe you should tell them. So sending an email, posting on Facebook saying we're halfway through, we'd really love you to fund us is a really effective way of kind of getting people back in to kind of defeat that mid-campaign goal. And if you have a 60-day campaign, that can be a really long doldrum. And so that's why I would advise people, don't really think over 45 days. I think 45 days is a long time. 30 days is a lot.
What about, do people ever ask for a do-over? Like they realize that, I don't know, they were picking their nose in the video, the link that they posted was broken or something. Like do people, is that a thing? Is it useful? Is it effective at all?
So you can re-upload and edit every part of your project as it's live. So if you have a problem with your description, a problem with your video, those are definitely things that you can edit as you're live. We haven't actually had any project be asked to be taken down. So if a project did ask to be taken down, we'd have to think about that. We've never encountered that. But we have seen projects be posted again because they didn't make their threshold the first time. And usually that comes with a lot of learning about how to do this sort of work. Is it really, we had a few people who hear about crowdfunding. They're like, this is great. I'm going to post a project, and then I'm going to sit back and just watch the money flow in. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. You posting the project is the easy part. Spreading the word about it, inviting people into your story, telling them why they should partner with you in doing this work is a lot of work. Well, maybe I will turn it over to Adam. Seems like a good time for you to talk about your experience, and then we can circle back to any other specifics or questions. So Adam, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Is there anywhere in particular you'd like me to start?
Why don't you start with a little bit about, you talked about where this came from, this project, but a little bit more depth about that, and then posting the project, getting it funded. How'd that happen?
Okay. So I started this project. I was coming off of my internship, like I said, and the project really came directly out of my experience in the internship, watching a lot of what has been going on in terms of Black Lives Matter, also from some reading that was part of my reading list for the year. Add that up with the work that I was involved in prior to my internship. I actually work for a policy advocacy organization called Policy Link, and their focus is equity, is racial and economic equity. And I had this idea. I said, well, so here we are, our congregations seem to struggle with Black Lives Matter. They struggle with issues around class and culture. I wonder if there's something that I can do. Realizing that I'm only one person, I said to myself, well, what about this? I have a summer that's free. It's open and clear. So I could basically do anything I want with this. Why don't I put it to good use and actually see what kind of interest there is in having some sort of concerted effort around race, class, and culture, not really understanding what that could be. So it's really, I was putting together a research project, excuse me. So that is actually what this was. And I framed the whole thing in terms of exploring and using this time to actually explore what's our capacity here in California to do this work. So what I had to do was I had to first of all set the parameters for the work I wanted to see done, set the parameters for the project. And I said, okay, I can't possibly fund something for a year because I was looking at this. Well, I started looking at the idea of Faithify, I think it was in March or so. I said, well, there's no way I could actually make that happen just conceptually in terms of networks, et cetera. So let me just look at the summer. That's the first thing. So those are the parameters of that. Then look at the parameters of what I actually wanted to accomplish with that summer. And I realized I needed to have some sort of activity that was involving people in the congregations, but then also have an end product. And that end product for me is a report, which I'm actually preparing at this time. So I have the summer, I have the report to get to, and then the way to get to creating the report. But then I had to put on my business background. I have experience in running small businesses, and I had to look at it in a really old school way. And it's interesting, Sean, you say that this is something that has not. It's brand new in the last 5 years, and I would say yes, certainly in terms of the internet it is, but I think in terms of human beings, this is a very, very, very old concept. I look at it as, if some of you folks might remember the idea of the rent party, where everyone gets together and brings a little bit of money to support someone else's rent, or a potluck is another way to think of it, or even an old analogy of stone soup, where everyone brings a piece of the pie together so that everyone is fed in the end. And that's the way I conceived of it. Realizing that I was coming to the end of my internship and we were just before General Assembly, I realized that I also had the advantage of that juxtaposition as well. That there I was, coming off this internship in a large congregation that could offer me some good support with that and some good enthusiasm, not just in terms of funding, but also in terms of network. And then leading up to General Assembly. So I said, okay, I need to time this right as well. So my timing has to be right. The project has to be right. The goals of the project have to be right in order to make this a reality. And the very first thing I did was I sat down before I fleshed any of this out. I said, let me create a budget. What is the budget? What needs to be paid for? How does it need to be paid for? And when and through whom? And I came up with that budget, and my total budget for this project over the summer was about $6,000. And I said, well, okay, now I need to look at my different sources. And looking at Faithify, I actually figured out that Faithify, the average is about $5,000 that gets raised. I said, okay, so let me set my goal somewhere close to that $5,000 range, understanding that I'm going to still need to do other fundraising outside of it. Then it was about putting together resources, not the economic resources, but putting together my network resources. I'm a blogger. I have that resources built in. I've been blogging for the last 3 or 4 years. So I have a network so that as soon as I put something onto my blog, bam, it goes out to a few thousand people, which is a good thing right there. Facebook, I'm active on Facebook. People are aware of me. They get pinged when I put something on Facebook, and I'm familiar with using it. Another resource. Again, that congregation that I had been serving recently, another resource. Then the most useful resource out of them all was connecting with UU Justice Ministry of California. When I partnered with UU Justice Ministry of California, that opened up a statewide network for me. And this, when I was looking at the parameters of what I was doing, the one thing I hadn't originally thought of was what is the location that I'm trying to serve. And when I started talking to UU Justice Ministry of California, I'm like, that's it, California. So that set all of my parameters. At that point, all that was left for me to do was to create a decent site. I had everything primed, had my networks, I had my goals, had the actual scope of the work all primed. And so when I I timed it so that I finished my internship on June 14th. I'm trying to think how this added up. Right. So I started my Faithify campaign on June 4th, 30 days to end on July 4th. So that encompassed the end of my internship and General Assembly. So these are two high-profile-y kinds of things. And I realized that I had to be very active. I was very active and on Facebook, making posts. I created a page just for the project on Facebook as well. I invited people from my network to that page. They set out the word to other people. So it was about that like Sean is saying, it was about really combing and grooming the network and the process and the project as well. I was very lucky as well. So another thing that I'll mention, and you can certainly ask me questions, would probably be a better way to go about this. But one thing was really interesting, coming from sort of old school business, I was thinking in terms of what the fundraising would look like without Faithify.
Mm-hmm.
So I created those structures. I created the structures. I created grant letters. I created a language to use. And what was so interesting was that I did some tests of that material before launching the Faithify, got responses, got feedback from a network of people who advised me on a regular basis, and realized that I needed that grant language actually in my Faithify page. So instead of sending out the individual grant letters, I sent a couple, and I'm glad I did. I sent a couple, but I actually used that as the basis. I completely reworked my Faithify page in the 2 days before it launched, based on the responses from those letters. And I look back on that page and I say, wow, that's a great grant. And it is. I'm proud of what the collaborative effort was that went into creating clear language, showing some great data and parameters for what the project is. I'll leave it there for now, but eventually I do want to circle back around to what the next step is as a result of that.
So maybe just to give a little bit of context, Adam's project raised $4,638 in 30 days, with 46 people funding him. So that means the average donation was about $100. That's fairly consistent with what we're seeing on Faithify, is that the average donation is about $100. And I like to take a moment and kind of step back and think about the amazing work that Adam is doing and how 46 people allowed him to do that work. And like 46 seems like a manageable number for a lot of us. Finding 46 people in our lives that can step forward and give us some money, it doesn't have to be all of it, but giving us some money is a manageable thing that we can do. What we need is to have a platform that allows them to ask, or for them to give us the money, but also for us to go out there and just ask them. Asking for support in this way is something that doesn't necessarily come naturally to a lot of us. Seems it kind of goes against this, some mentalities, but it is a really powerful thing.
And I'd love to follow up on that because of the nature of the work that I'm doing. So doing work on race, class, and culture, part of the conversations that I've been having is around class and is around money. And the reluctance that people have to talk about money and to engage money is very, very, very telling. I was surprised at how taken aback people were at how easily I would just simply ask them for money. It was something that I had to. I went through a whole process with getting over any kind of money phobias a few years back. But it's actually a really beautiful teaching moment for UUs to actually engage this platform, to learn how to ask for help, basically.
I want to pause there and see if there are any questions for Adam or about the site that are kind of bubbling up.
Adam, I'm curious, did you know, when you see those 46, were they in those resources that you named? Or do
Every single one. Every single
Okay,
one of them.
so it really is, in a sense, it really is working those direct contacts versus, for some reason, I envisioned it would be people who just scroll the site and go, oh, I like that one, like Kiva a long time ago. I don't know if you ever saw that site,
Yeah.
but so you'd kind of go, oh, that looks like a good project, and put some cash on it. But this sounds like it's a much more of a relationship.
It's a relationship, and yeah, money came from some unexpected places as well, and from people who just wanted to show that they cared.
Yeah.
And I think that was very important. But I had to put myself out there. Definitely came from those networks.
Okay.
And that's pretty consistent across a lot of the projects. I would say about 80% of the funding from Faithify comes from exactly who the project owners ask. And 20% can be a bit of a wild card. The project that All Souls DC launched, which was creating these beautiful, I believe, videos set to different music. I was talking with the music director, and she was saying that 60% came from the usual places, but 40% came from sources that she hadn't even imagined. And one of the biggest ones was the parents of young adults in the congregation. So it was a way for parents to be involved in their children's lives and in something that was important to them in a tangible and meaningful way. And so it's about kind of identifying all the different groups and people that would likely support you, and then asking them in targeted ways, which is exactly what I'm saying.
Thanks.
Other questions or thoughts?
I would love to share a couple more tidbits. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. I did experience the lull. Definitely experienced the lull. There was a big rush in the first week and a half. I think I want to say I topped 1,500 within 4 days or something ridiculous like that. It was like, what? And then it just, it did definitely calm down quite a bit. And I was prepared for that, though. I had it in mind that, okay, this is just going to be the way it is. Another thing that I did that I think is handy is, if you are imagining this, I was able to connect this to my travel to General Assembly, where I handed out postcards to people. If you're able to connect your Faithify campaign to an event of some kind, it's very, very, very beneficial.
That's brilliant.
So connecting it to an event, if there's something special going on at the church that you know of, whatever, but being able to give something to people in hand really works for us old school folks.
Yep.
One of the things I'll mention here is that there's kind of a perception out there about what sorts of projects can be posted on Faithify. A lot of people have assumed that you have to be a congregation, it has to be kind of a church applying for money, which isn't the case at all. We have crowdfunded 3 ordinations so far. I'm hoping to do some specific outreach to get some more, because I think that's a great candidate for this sort of work. We have yet to have any seminary studies being posted on Faithify, but maybe that. But this can be supporting individual UUs doing their work in the world. This can be UU organizations like justice networks. I think we've had 2 or 3 justice networks use Faithify to fundraise. This can be congregations, it can be UU groups, it can be UUs involved in nonprofit work that is connected to Unitarian Universalism. So it is quite open, as long as you can answer those 2 questions.
And just to sort of wrap up my bit and say where this is headed now. So I spent the summer traveling around the state of California, going to a few different congregations. I interacted with about 117 different congregants, 6 different congregations from Northern California, Central, and also Southern, as well as the San Diego cluster ministers. Getting their thoughts on specifically race, class, and culture, where we're at, what we can do, and how to engage, as well as presenting them with some of my ideas about ways to make it a spiritual, make our spiritual journey more intentional around those 3 areas. And so now what I will do is I'm going to sit down and compile this into a report, and present my thoughts and also some real tangible directions that we can go, having actually talked to people about where they're at, which I will share with the UU Justice Ministry of California, which I'm hoping then we'll be able to share denomination-wide.
Great.
I'd
be interested in reading it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
This is the really cool thing that I love about my job is I get to talk with project owners and because the $337,000 is one number, but the countless stories and impacts that these projects have made in the world are just so much more tangible than that kind of number, even though I think the number is impressive. So I'd love to know, are there Faithify projects that you're potentially interested in launching? I know that UU Jazz has one that's, because we're partnering with the funding program, and they're inviting people to do their matching funding. So that's something that you have kind of in the works. Other questions or different projects that you're thinking of?
I have a question related to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm wondering whether it's helpful to tell people on Faithify that that's part of what's going on here, is that we're working towards matching money.
I think it is. I mean, a lot of projects, I know that right now the CLF, the Church of the Larger Fellowships project, supporting their prison ministry, is a matching grant. And the way they phrase it is, this is doubling your impact. So for every dollar you're putting in, the project is going to get 2. And so that's a message that people resonate with. I would also suggest that if you can carve out a specific part of the grant that you're receiving, so that there's kind of a specific story or impact that money will have, it's going to definitely be more impactful than this was our whole grant application and this is just a part of it, so can you fund us? But really trying to figure out a really impactful story within what you were asking for and what you're going to be doing, so that people can get connected. So if that's, specifically for your conference or specifically for some advocacy work that you're doing, narrowing that I think could be really useful for people to latch on.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Other questions?
Okay.
All right.
I guess I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Since our organization works with UUs in Arizona, do you have any information on whether people from other states will even look twice? I mean, it seems like our audience is really Arizona.
I don't have any concrete data. I haven't looked at, I know that when Massachusetts Mass Action, UU Mass Action did their fundraising, it was around a specific program, and I haven't looked at the demographics. I would say that if there was a compelling justice issue that's spread across, beyond Arizona, I know immigration is one that has captivated a lot of UU hearts across the country. If you find a way to make it relevant to everyone and to UU values, and you have networks that you're targeting, and making the case that investing in, the the justice work that you're doing in Arizona is investing in a wider movement and investing in a better world, then I think that you may make some headway. It also could be asking your friends at other state advocacy networks to share your Faithify campaign with their members. Maybe have some kind of collaboration going on. And you'll definitely do the same when they're putting up their case. But it would be about figuring out what that kind of value proposition for non-Arizona residents would be. But I think it's definitely there.
I was just thinking that, I mean, that's where the Justice GA was, where it was one of the largest GAs. Mm-hmm. So I would, if I were you, I would somehow in your opening statement tap into that taproot, just because there's many of us from around the country that have a really strong heart and physical and rage, all of that connected to Arizona. That comes up in a way that's different if it was a different state.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being at that vigil outside.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a moment that will stay with me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Plastic candles that people are carrying and the singing, definitely something that will stick with me. So harnessing that, I think it's a great suggestion.
Great, thanks.
And I have also a regionally minded question. Being in Canada, I'm wondering if there's any issues relating to that about the platform and the currency exchange and IRA and ERA and all that.
Yes, this was something that I was going to mention to you if you didn't ask. So right now, to launch a Faithify campaign, you need a U.S.-based bank account.
U.S. currency account.
Pardon? It's not a U.S. currency account. It's a bank account located in the United States.
Oh, that's different.
With a U.S. bank. And so I have yet to be able to look into the legalities of transferring money across the border, even though as a Canadian, I do that a lot. I think it would be easier if you're funding yourself doing something versus funding an organization, because I know the IRS and Canada Revenue have issues when you're transferring money from organization to organization, especially charitable organizations across the border. It's also something that, Rod, if you're thinking about crowdfunding something, I know that a few of us can throw together a site for you that would be able to do that. So,
if I could mention one thing, one of the reasons that I also did partner with UU Justice Ministry was to have a fiscal agent, which is a very handy way to approach this. We had done that with CGUS as well, the Continental Gathering of UU Seminarians. Having a fiscal agent that can work on your behalf may also be a way around some of that as far as the tax stuff. Yeah. So that's something to consider.
Thanks, Adam.
So does Faithify, it doesn't take any cut from the funds that are raised?
I forgot to talk about that. We take 90%. We take 90%.
Awesome, great. You're sitting in a cush office, yeah.
Yes, my very cushy office. So that's great, and that's something that I should have mentioned before. So Faithify itself does not take a cut. We are a gift from the Massachusetts Bay District to our denomination. So funds that have been raised locally and also at GA in Phoenix, where there was a fund taken in the name of Ginny Corder, which supported the development of Faithify. So we are a gift, so we don't take any money. That being said, to process credit cards on the internet, you need something called a payment processor, and our payment processor takes 2.9% plus 30 cents off of each transaction. And so how that looks is that when someone makes a donation, if I type in $50, it says you want to donate $50, and then we will add on 2.9% plus 30 cents onto that donation.
Yeah.
So that's how that works. That's how the age of the internet allows payment processing to happen. I like to think that 30 cents goes to someone buying a gumball That's how it's easier for me to think about that makes sense. But yeah, that is the cost of using the platform.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. So one thing that I'll mention is that our payment processor is called WePay. And so when you're making your project, you will be instructed to make an account with WePay and then a link to your account so that all donations will be tracked. And then after your campaign is successful, you log into WePay, you link your bank accounts, and then over about a week and a half, the money gets transferred over. So we do say that if you are wanting money right away, you should work in about a week to 2 weeks for that transaction to actually happen. I spent most of the day trying to work out an issue with our payment processor. So if you have questions about that, please just shoot me an email. And about anything, I'm really, really happy to support projects.
Great, thanks. I have one last question for Adam. Adam, when you were coming up with your initial budget, then did you, it sounds like you didn't put all 6,000 onto Faithify.
Right.
Did you sort of calculate in your mind, I can imagine I have 50 donors at this amount, or how did you come, how did you decide where that was between the 6,000 and what you ended up going for?
Well, what I looked at the other projects. I looked at what the average was that was coming across in terms of the projects that were funded.
Okay.
And I said, I want, more than anything, I want my project to be successfully funded.
Yeah.
Because if it's not successfully funded, then none of this works.
Yeah.
So what I did was I created a range for myself. I said, okay, I need $6,000 to do this project properly. If I go for 5,000, that's the average. So there are odds are that I might not make that 5,000. And I don't know if I really want, I'm dealing with a limited time period here.
Sure.
I don't know that I want to take that risk. So I decreased my risk by 1,000. And I said, let's go for 4,000. And what I'll do is I'll continue to fundraise outside of there.
Okay.
Because I knew that I felt comfortable that I could, on my own, outside of Faithify, raise $2,000.
Okay.
So yeah, it was all based on what I knew I could do outside of there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's somewhat different than grant writing, where sometimes they say go in high and you might get 75% what you ask
Yeah,
for.
it's very different.
Here, you almost want to do the opposite formula, which is going for like 75% of what you hope for, so you actually get funded, and figure out how you're going to fund the rest, it seems like.
Exactly.
There's a little bit of a psychological game, though, because once you've reached your goal, psychologically people are like, okay, they're done. And so unless you're really good at communicating that actually you'd love some more money to do more good work, and that this is what you would do with that more money. There was a project that the total cost of what they were trying to do was an internship through the UUSC service committee. The total cost was about $2,000. They played it safe. They wanted $500, but the text says, I really want more. They got $600.
Okay.
The average project that is successful makes about 110% of their goal. So that's something to know as well, that it's hard to break 10% over your goal.
Sure, that makes sense.
So it's a balancing game of like which side do you think you're going to go on. But I think that's just an adventure.
Oh no, yeah, for sure, and it's a good test of how risk averse you are.
For sure, yeah. Well, thanks so much. I want to firstly thank Adam for sharing your experience and the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
That's absolutely my pleasure. I will say again, I would not be here doing this if it weren't for the UU Justice Ministry of California and for First UU of San Diego. They gave amazing support to this project.
And we hope to see all of you launching Faithify projects in the near future. If you have a question, you can shoot it to info@faithify.org or sean@faithify.org, and we're happy to answer your questions and support you as you launch your project. So that's how we can support you, and we're excited to see what you're going to Faithify next.
Thanks so much.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Take care.